think about Michael Richards. Okay, I'm recording and I'm ready, buddy. Right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Resurrected or When It Was You podcast. If this is your first time listening, think of us as your friendly neighbourhood video game book club coming together to discuss a specific game each and every week, dismantling and picking at the dried up rotten carcass of a video game each episode, except this one and many others, to bring you some juicy morsels of discussion. We talk ins, we talk outs, and if you're lucky, we have a bit of fun along the way. Whether you've played the game alongside us in anticipation of the podcast, whether you've played the game before, or even if the game is nestled comfortably in your pile of shame, there will be something here for you, so be rest assured that we have you covered. This week, however, we have a live change of pace. What have I written here? A little, maybe. This week, however, we have a little change of pace for everyone. At time of recording, I'm told that I'm ever so nearly finished my playthrough of the 1996 Resident Evil, but it's Tuesday, so Alex and I have dusted off the medallions and shoved some metal stairs into place to bring you something a little different this week. And what is this episode? I'm fucking this up.
70, I think.
What is this episode? I hear you cry. Well, as Alex said, it's episode 70, and ladies and gentlemen, as it's still the summer of Resi at time of recording, Alex and I have at this point played quite a few Resi games, we realised, over the last couple of weeks. So for this here podcast, we thought we would bring you a little ranking of Resi's episode right into your ear holes. So sit back, buckle up, get ready to have the T-virus injected straight into your veins. And for the avoidance of doubt, I've said his name already, but my name is David, and with me this week is Mr. Alex Aldridge as usual. How you doing, mate? You good today? Still sweltering down in England?
Yeah. I think that's partly because I went to the Gaim.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah.
I think last time the gym popped up in a conversation between us, you were doing a bit of swimming. Have you kept that up?
No, it's too expensive.
Oh, is it it's not wrapped in?
Unfortunately not. No, this is the gym where I work at the college. So it's just that gym, and it's a good time to go because there's no students around at the moment.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's true. No students here messing it up.
Yeah, because it can get quite busy in the winter time with all the students kicking around, and then it's quite embarrassing because they're all young and healthy. So don't want to be involved with any of that.
No.
At the end of the session, it was like a pull down bar or something, and I did like 100 reps of something really low weight. But I think that's the wrong way to do it.
Depends what you're going for, mate. It depends what you're going for.
Not being fat, I don't know if that makes any difference to any of it. But as the song said, I just had to go pow, 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 pow. So I was clanging and banging.
There's nothing wrong with doing a bit of endurance. It's probably good for burning calories. It's probably pretty good for... I mean, like, if you're not looking to look like The Rock, then it's a good way to sort of burn calories and maintain leanness, I guess. So I would say, yeah, that's probably your option.
Yeah, rather than just trying to lift something ridiculously heavy, I feel like that wouldn't do me any favours.
Nah, it's probably not the best, and you'll also end up quite sore the day after. So
I'm just expecting that to happen now.
It may well do.
I got like over 50 and was like, this feels like too many, and I feel like I'm going to regret this. But I feel okay right now, but we'll see how I feel tomorrow.
I did a HIIT workout because when I was down your way, because I was like, well, I feel disgusted. And the first couple,
you hung out with me, you ate some shitty food.
The first couple of days I was in England at my girlfriend's auntie's house. I don't think I saw a single vegetable. So, I was like, I need to do some sort of moving. So I did a quick 30-minute HIIT workout, and even just that, because it was like a new movement that I wasn't used to doing, I was in quite significant pain the next day in my legs. I was like hobbling about a wee bit. So yeah, you probably will hurt if it's something you haven't done before.
Yeah. That's what you get when you push in 40 and you start being silly in the gym. It'll get better.
Exactly.
I assume.
Exactly. Just got to keep at it, mate. Find something you enjoy doing. That is my tip to anyone that is looking at improving their fitness a wee bit or just being a bit more healthy. Because if you find something you enjoy doing, it's not so bad. Not everybody has to go to the gym. But if you enjoy walking or you enjoy hiking,
sport is where it's always
running,
for me. But
football,
just finding people to play it with me,
yeah. That's the thing. It's hard for me. I love playing, but my ankles can't handle it anymore. Too many busted up ankles playing rugby. I can't really change direction while I'm running very well. They sort of slip out their sockets.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's quite sort of constant ankle rolls. This is my game anytime I'm doing any sort of contact sport.
Oh, yeah, that's no good.
No. But we're not here to talk ankle rolls. And if I was... Well, I suppose if you put me in a Resident Evil game, I would just be running away from some sort of Titan or Mr. X or something like that, and I'd just roll my ankle and stack it into a plant and then just get killed. That would be how I'd go out, I think.
Maybe that's why you seem, to either forget or be averse to using the quick turn on all these games, just because, if that was real life, you'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, I think so. Just like, no, can't handle the quick turn.
Yeah.
I have to live my life like I walk around like tank controls. That's just how I do it. No,
you have to back up and then.
No analog movement for David.
I saw you using that quite a lot today, actually, so that was unfair.
It's only taken me how many games to?
Everybody.
How 10. Many? Yeah. To get used to, because I've completed every other tank control video game without doing it.
Yeah.
It's good in 96. Well, because it wasn't in the OG Resi, was it? This is like an add-on.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's good in this one. It's like rapid in a way I didn't think the others were. Maybe they were, and I just wasn't using them.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the topics of the next pod too early, but because I was playing the DS version, I found the quick turn to be quite slow on that one.
Oh, did it?
I was disappointed. Yeah.
When I next see you, if you've got your DS on you, I want to see this game in action to see how it compares, because that seems like a really cool way to play this Resi.
It is, yeah. It looks surprisingly nice as well.
I'm hoping
really
that
well.
When we get our trip down to York sorted, I'm going to have my Vita and I can do some Metal Gear Solid on the way down. I think that'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
Or on the flip of that, I was listening to the Video Games Chronicle podcast at the gym today, and they were talking about Pokemon. I was like,
don't listen to it. this we don't like it.
We don't.
We've tried this enough times. We don't like Pokemon.
We don't. It's still in my brain though, scratching away, saying, "Oh, you could get a 3DS one, Pokemon Black and White. That could be it for you."
You'd probably have more fun playing that Golden Sun if you could find a way to do that.
Is that the sort of open world, proper third person off the shoulder Pokemon?
I mean, if you wanted something actually handheld to play, then I would suggest, if you go in that era of stuff, then you want to play like Phoenix Wright, or you want to play not Layton. What was the other?
So actually, I know you just mentioned Layton. So you know how I could play that football game we spoke about when I was down at your house. So I subscribed to a month of.
Oh yeah.
It's like Game Pass for Android phones. Well, it's got 2 Layton games on there, so I've been plopping about in Layton, as well as 80 Days is the one that's sort of got my attention. But yeah, I've got Layton.
What a lovely game 80 Days is.
I've got a Devil's, was it an Ace Attorney game that I've got downloaded, ready to try as well. What's
that called?
It's called Devil's Attorney.
Oh.
I think it may be a mobile only one. Let me just quick. Yeah, Devil's Attorney.
Huh.
Looks pretty good. Nice little bit of music.
His name is Miles McMahon. He's the one in the plan. Money, fashion, success, and fame.
It's not Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, it's him. I'm sure it's him. Look, you won't even be able to see the app. See it there? Does that look like him?
No.
No, maybe it's not then.
You've been had.
I'm gonna have to play it now to let you just tell you what it's like. And then I've started the other, just while we're on a tangent, I started watching. What was it? A bit of a sort of like a loss. I had like a 45 minutes before I was going to go to sleep last night, and I was like looking through Netflix, and I was like, oh, DC Titans with Dick Grayson. So I've watched an episode and a half of that. Really like it so far. I'm only an episode in, and it's like Dick Grayson has sort of fucked off Batman, and he's gone off to Detroit, and he's just gone a bit rogue, and he's like stabbing people and going crazy. It seems pretty good. Have you heard of that? Because I hadn't until
No.
last night.
Oh, it's a live action thing.
Yeah, it's a sort of,
Interesting.
yeah, because I know I always proclaim to not like superheroes, but Batman, and there's sort of the odd bit. I mean, like, I stay away from Superman, but the sort of Batman wing of the DC universe always sort of has a little bit of a pull for me, even though luckily for me, because it makes my life easier, most of it's rubbish.
Yeah.
It means I can just ignore
drop
it.
out.
Yeah, so
Did you ever watch Daredevil?
no,
That's worth a watch.
I've
I
only
think you'd like
watched.
that.
I've seen the movie. Did not like that.
No, it's nothing like that.
Okay, maybe I should watch it then.
Yeah, that might drop you into the Punisher after that as well, which I also have not watched. But
Is that meant to be good as well?
yeah, I think so.
I'll
And the
need to
Punisher's
give these
just
a go.
cool.
He is.
But I recommend the Daredevil Netflix show. That's really good. Like, really adult as well, properly violent and
Oh, is it?
sweary and stuff. Yeah.
Well.
Ain't your granddad's Marvel, that's for sure.
If you're at a loss, check out Titans, because that also is violent and there's lots of sex in it and stuff.
Ooh, baby. Was there lots of sex in something I was playing recently? Oh yeah, fucking Final Fantasy 16. I keep forgetting about that.
Are you still playing? No, is it 16? That's the newest one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you still get chugging along with that.
Well, I had a big break for all the Resi, but as I finished the DS one like a week or so ago, I've been back on it.
Still
Give it a
waiting
go.
for a nice little sale or not to be 70 quid, and I'm
Well,
because I was
Quite.
like, this is not for me, and then I played the demo and I was like, oh no, I love this.
yeah, it's still good. I mean, there's a lot of side quest shit in it, but the main story I'm still finding pretty damn good and like intriguing, and the world is really well realized and thought out.
Yeah.
I also played a bit yesterday on my original Xbox. I played some Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, which
Oh yes.
I think is probably why my thumb's really hurting today.
How is the controller for that game on that?
That's what I was
console?
worried about too, right? But it's fine. Yeah,
It's
I've
fine.
had no issues with the controller. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I've not got the Duke. I've got like the revision version.
The revision version.
Yeah, mine's like a for the video. For those watching the video, this is like a green one.
Oh yeah.
So
It's like
when I
is that a
used to,
Halo one?
It kind of looks like a Halo one,
Yeah.
doesn't it? When me, my two friends Simon and Chris used to like go around each other's houses and play Xbox and stuff. This was my controller always. That was if they came to me, and this was the Green Goblin. And then I had like a black one that I called the Traveller, because that came with me every time I went with somebody else's. I'd never take my one there in case I left it. So I took the Traveller with me. I can't remember what Chris's was. Chris's was blue, and it had a name, but I don't remember what he called it.
I just had a
But it
black
was something blue. Yeah.
one. Standard old black one. Do you know what I wish? Well, I guess they've solved the problem now because controllers don't have cables anymore. But you know how it had the little break bit? That was
Yeah, I
such a
can
good
see it from
idea.
here. Yeah, that was amazing,
so
wasn't
good.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't yank your console off a shelf.
Yeah.
Probably still could manage it.
So I
But yeah,
remember the
really
story.
good on the Xbox, the original Xbox, Tony Hawk. I forgot that they had loading on old consoles, because fucking hell. It loads, like when you're creating your skater, it loads every time you just change his face. You can hear the disc go
Oh, that's funny.
every time you just press next face. So it's
'Cause
taken ages.
I actually when I was streaming a bit of Resi today, I said that I don't know if you were watching at that point or not, but I was like, I bet I have saved so much time playing this game because there's like little to no
I
loading
think you
screens.
did say that, yeah.
Like it gets to a door and you can just press X and it just goes boom and it's gone, and it's just like this, like
Yeah,
because
nice.
there's a bit in the, I think it's when you're like traveling between the mansion and the lab, or like the underground bit, where you've got to you're at the top of a flight of stairs. You go down the stairs and you get the going down the stairs animation, and then as soon as you get down the stairs, there's a door in front of you, and then you get the door animation again. And I was like, oh, this section would be so annoying, especially because that was at a period when I was having to do a lot of backtracking to like
Yep.
oh my goodness. Anyway.
And the DS version, you can skip all that. They left it all in the game for authenticity's sake, but because it's a cartridge, you can just press A and skip through every single door. Yeah, I love that. Right.
We're here to rank Resident Evil, and I'm looking forward to this. All day I've been looking forward to this when we decided we were going to do
it. Me too. So what I'll do is I'll go through the games that we're going to be ranking first of all. Then I'll give a Metacritic and a sales ranking.
Oh, excellent.
And then we'll do our own. And what we're going to do for that, everybody, is probably... We've done our own rankings each, and we'll probably assign a point system to it. So there's 10 games to rank. So this is not a ranking of every Resident Evil game yet. We will come back to this in a year or two. This is a ranking of the games we have so far covered on the podcast.
So see when we play a Resident Evil game from now on, are we going to go as we go? Or are we going to do it in blocks?
No, we'll maybe wait a year or two and then
until we've got another 5 or 10 and then go again, add it to the list. And then I guess at that point we'll have to probably redo the list.
I would have thought so. Yeah. But for this list, I would say, for example, the game that each of us rank in first place will get 10 points and the bottom one will get 1 point, and then we'll make a points total, and that should create a combined list of.
Let's do that, and then we'll eyeball it and see if we're happy with it.
Okay. Yeah, we're normally quite good at. We've done a lot of rankings in the past.
Yeah,
we're proper rankers we are.
We are. It's just good fun. It's a good. So I think the best thing about sort of ranking podcasts is that it facilitates conversation about said games.
Yes.
And that's all I've got to say on that.
It'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be nice to go back and re-chat about some of the old games that we've covered. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear yours, because I think mine. I didn't have to think. Oh, you didn't either. I didn't have to think too hard about it. It was quite naturally set itself in order. But you seemed the same when you were doing it. But I don't know exactly what your thoughts are.
I feel
and they will
guilty.
Have changed because you're playing a lot for the first time.
And I think I was saying to you just before we started recording. I'm making the list and I'm feeling guilty because I think 9 of the 10 games in this list I actually quite like. I certainly like 8 of them. Yeah. One of them's alright, and then one of them I've dislike with a passion. So there's a game that is the second worst game on my list is a game that I think's okay. I don't dislike it. So
actually, that is a good point though. One of the games we are going to be ranking is a game that we played for a bit for the podcast, but then abandoned because it's so terrible. Guess what it is, everybody?
Ooh.
So the games we're going to be ranking today are Resident Evil, which was released in March 1996 and will be covered in episode 71 of the podcast, which is next episode. And that version that David played is the seamless HD PC version, whereas I played the DS version. We will be ranking Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, released September 1999. We covered it in episode 69 of the podcast. It was Summer of Resi 2023 Part 2. And we both played the seamless HD version, which was actually the GameCube version.
It's actually gorgeous.
Yeah. We will be covering or ranking Dino Crisis from July 1999. So that's slightly... Oh, I tried to do these in chronological order. That's actually before Resident Evil 3.
Dino Crisis is a bolter, as we would say in the team sports community. It's sort of come out of the it wasn't clear that it was going to be on the list until it just made a run 5 minutes before we started recording.
It
Alex
deserves
said,
to be there.
Add Dino Crisis to your list.
Yeah. We covered that in episode 44, which was Summer of Resi 2022 Part 3, and we played the PC version with the
What was your
patch.
What's the qualification for this? Is it because Dino Crisis, is it the same people? Well, I can't remember now. It's been so long since we did. Okay, because I was like, should Parasite Eve be on this list? Because it's sort of...
No, because that's a different developer.
Okay, because it's sort of Resi-like in my head, even though it's actually not. It's more of a JRPG, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix of the two. But Dino Crisis is in there because it was developed, I believe, directed by Shinji Mikami, and it was codenamed something like Resident Evil Dinosaur or something.
Devil May Cry going to do as well.
Well, I mean, Onimusha could, because that was called
yeah.
Resident Evil Samurai, but no. At least it has to have somebody shooting something.
I totally forgot we even played that game. Oh my god, that was a cool
I
game.
actually really like that.
Yeah.
We'll be ranking Resident Evil 0, which released in November 2002. We covered that in episode 43 of the podcast, which was Summer of Resi 2022 Part 2. And I think we both played the Dolphin version of that, like the GameCube version on Dolphin. I think. I didn't play my actual GameCube for it.
Yeah, I played the GameCube version on Dolphin.
Because obviously they did remaster that in HD.
Oh,
I don't know. Did we play
no,
that?
I played it on I played it on Xbox. I've got it on Xbox.
Actually, yeah, I think I played it on the PS4 actually, or PS5, whatever. Yeah, okay. There's Resident Evil 5 from March 2009. We covered that in episode 42, which was Summer of Resi 2022.
Played it co-op.
1. We did play that.
One of the
co-op
few
on
games
Xbox
I think we've covered
One.
on this podcast that we played the entirety in co-op.
Yeah, because we often have that idea, don't we? And then it just
I think it's a great idea. We just don't do it enough.
we sort of struggle to fit the evenings together in, and we just kind of get it done when we're at work or on lunch breaks and stuff. And it's Resident Evil 6 is the one that we abandoned. That's from October 2012. We played that on Xbox One for a bit, but it's, well, you can guess where that's one it's going to go.
Number 7.
What? With a bullet. Resident Evil 7 will be ranked in this episode. That was released January 2017. We covered that in episode 12.
So was that the first one we did?
It is the first one we did. We played that on Xbox, probably on Xbox Series X, but it's the Xbox One version. That was as a precursor to us playing Village.
Mm-hmm.
We were
that's right, because Village.
We knew we were going to cover Village, and then we wanted to get you ready for it, or both of us ready for it, really. Resident Evil 2 Remake will be ranked in this list. That's from January 2019. We covered that in episode 68, which was Summer of Resi 2023 Part 1. We played the updated Series X version of that. We've got Resident Evil Village from May 2021. That was episode 13 of the podcast. We played the Series X version of that. And the final game being ranked will be Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is from March 2023. We covered that in episode 59. And we also played that on Series X. Or, yeah, not PS5, was it, for you?
Not for me, no. PlayStation
So that's our 10
me
games.
buy their old games, so only if I have to, it goes on PS5.
Good point. Very good. I think that one does have a free update. No, not a free update, because that's just came out on the Series X, didn't it? So shut up, Alex.
I think the last one, because for some reason Sony saw fit to put a date on their, we're going to let you play, like, sort of upgrade your old games till X date, and I think Horizon was the last game they did. And they even tried to not do that one until people were like, hold on a minute, you said you were gonna. And they were like, oh yeah.
So, the Metacritic ranking of these games.
Oh yeah, I'm interested for this.
In 10th position is Resident Evil 6 with a score of 67.
I'm going to write this down as I go.
The bottom one. In 9th position is Resident Evil. Well, actually, technically, it's joint 8th position is Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 5, that both scored 83 points.
Okay, that's still quite a high.
Yeah, Resident Evil. Yeah, they're both quite high scores.
83
really.
for 0, did you say?
Yeah, I would say I expected 5 to have a high Metacritic score than Resident Evil 0.
I'm trying to think back
I think people
to.
did quite like.
We might have.
Time,
yeah, we might have been. I think we were we were in our little nascent stage of podcasting
probably.
in Resi 5, and I've got a memory that people generally liked it, but it was during the era where everyone was like getting furious. It's like, let me walk and shoot at the same time. So I wonder if that knocked it a little bit.
Yeah, and probably the single player is not anything.
It got
not a patch on the co-op of it.
It got branded racist at some point as well, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it did. Probably by us on the podcast as well. I think, yeah, it was going further and further away from horror, which I guess is probably what made people not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Joint 6th position for Metacritic is Resident Evil Village and Dino Crisis, that both have 84.
Interesting.
In 5th place is Resident Evil 7 with 86. In 4th place is Resident Evil 3 Nemesis with 91.
Whoa.
Although that has a 79 for the Dreamcast version and a 62 for the GameCube version. I think you remember I said to you before about how they ported these as single games to the GameCube and everyone was
That's
not
right.
happy about it. Well,
Yeah.
there you go, 62 for that. Resident Evil, the first one, that's in 3rd position on 91 as well. So it's joint 3rd. In fact, it's joint 2nd on 91. It's got a 71 for the DS version, which is harsh, but I can understand that people thought by the time it came out, I think that came out post Resident Evil 4, so maybe people just thought the game itself was a bit old and janky.
Yeah,
even though
I can-
they're wrong.
Yes.
It's a great version. And also, yeah, their joint second then is the Resident Evil 2 remake, which also has 91, and then number 1 for Metacritic is the Resident Evil 4 remake that scores 93.
Interesting. So, little peek behind the curtain. My list is fairly all over the place, actually, in terms of that.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
would say-
really follow it.
Okay. Interesting. Mine, I'd say, is probably similar at certain ends, but not maybe around the middle. We'll find. Yeah. Well, I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
The sales ranking, right? So I was trying to find sales figures for the Resident Evil games, which, if you just sort of look
Must
at,
be tough because like several games got released on multiple consoles in
This is-
different
well,
eras as well.
Exactly, that does make it tough. And also, what makes it tough is, or would be, having to look at things like VG charts or whatever, because VG charts was a fucking mess when I looked at it. And I can't even. I found an article.
VG Charts doesn't do digital either, or it didn't back in the day. It maybe
Yeah,
does now.
I swear it didn't even have the 4 remake on there, I think. So I was just like, well, this is a waste of time. And I found an article from, and I don't even remember where it was from, but they said at the top of it, they explained where they'd got their figures from, and they'd actually got their figures from the English, like the English translated version of the Capcom Japanese website that actually has an entire list of every platinum game that they've made. So every game that sold 1 million copies or more is ranked on Capcom's own
Cool.
website with accurate sales figures up to 30th of June 2023.
That's
So-
really good.
Yeah.
Because it actually
Oh, that was
bugs
really
me
cool
how
that they laid that on the line.
secretive
Yeah.
the games industry are. I think I've heard it said a couple times in different places, but like the movie industry, you can basically see, they basically go, yeah, we're making that movie. Whereas the video game industry, they'll just like keep it secret for a little while. And it's just like, get a grip, man.
That's so true. Like, everything has to be a surprise with
Yeah.
games. It all has to be this big event, whereas
But-
movies, as you say, they're just a trailer before a film.
Pixar,
Somebody...
I think, example, you can literally look at the next 4 years of movies coming. Like,
And Marvel, remember they had like a 10-year plan?
oh my god, that it's their fault that I hate superheroes. So let's not poke at that bee's nest.
Yeah, let's not. So I did do some maths for this, because, as David pointed out, there'll be multiple versions of games and be across loads of different platforms when they've been re-released on later generations of consoles. So what I've done is just add them all fucking together. Any version that showed up in that list has been added. So
Okay.
some of these figures may not be correct, but what the fuck is... Okay, this whole spreadsheet has gone to dog shit.
Oh no.
The cursor's gone fucking mental. There we go. Right. So I guess potentially if a certain version of one of the games sold like less than 1 million, then then I may have missed that off. But I'll explain how the maths came to be anyway. So in 10th position, Dino Crisis, 2.4 million. In 9th position,
I'd say
Resident
that's
Evil
a
3
good sale
Nemesis.
in that era. That's a good amount
I
of
would say
games.
so.
Yeah,
For a spin-off game.
new
And I'm
IP
not
spin-off
actually
game.
sure what their thinking behind it was, other than just to capitalize on probably the engine and give Shinji Mikami something he probably wanted to do, because he probably watched Jurassic Park and was like, "Yeah, boy."
You can guarantee in 2023 marketing would have got a hold of that and it'd be called like Resident Evil Dinosaurs or something like that. It would have been, they would have tied in the IP in some way to get that brand recognition, but it was maybe in a little bit of a more naive, innocent period. Let's say innocent rather than naive.
Yeah, be like Jurassic Biohazard or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is number 9 with 3.5 million sold. So they both came out within like a few months of each other. So I guess maybe in total that was not too bad, as they
Yeah.
are both supposed to be spin-offs. The Resident Evil 4 remake is in 8th position at the moment. I mean, that's only been out since March. So that sold 4.9 million.
I
Then we have-
genuinely think though that this is like the sort of Xbox equivalent of, you know, like when they scuttled their brand during the Xbox One era. Like I think there's like the long, slow rebuilding of trust within the community. I know I know there's a lot of crossover between us and like the Resident Evil community. So I may be speaking out of turn here, but I do think that the Resident Evil 6 did so much damage to the IP that it's just taken a while for people to come back on board with this.
Well, we'll find out, won't we, as we keep going up.
Although 8 is, I think apparently 8 is
I was going to say, yeah, I
So
mean,
maybe that's
just,
not fully true.
I just think because it's the most recent one, maybe it's not had a full year on market. I mean, it only came out in March, so what we now August, end of August.
Yeah,
April,
take
May,
that
June,
back. I'm
July.
speaking shit.
It's like 5 months, 5 million. It's almost getting 1 million a month. That's not too bad.
I mean, I just don't. That's one thing is I don't know. Like, what's the tail on games? Like,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the game, but you would assume the vast majority of a game's sales are going to happen in the first 6
would
months.
assume that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although March is an odd time to release a game, I suppose.
Mm.
Unless, well, do games follow that sort of weird calendar
So
anymore? Of let's sell
this
everything
came
at
up with
Christmas? I don't know.
KDB from First Aid Spray, Gears Intel, and about 300 other podcasts.
Several of ours.
In my head, that was true up until like Mass Effect 3, and then when they released in like January, February, I think that sort of changed. Certainly with EA, like there's maybe not the deluge that you get between like August and December. That's like the big period, but yeah, I think I feel like the days of summer being a dead zone are kind of gone.
Yeah. What have we seen this summer that's been massive?
Well,
Baldur's
Final
Gate.
Fantasy, Baldur's Gate. I'm trying to think what else has come along. Let's have a look at quickly.
Remnant 2, I suppose.
Remnant 2, yeah. If I open up Twitch, I'll be able to tell you what the big games are on Twitch at the moment. Browse. Yeah, Baldur's Gate. Elden Ring's still flying about.
Oh, yeah, it always will.
Yeah, there's been, like I say, there's been a
Unvaluable.
couple. When did Zelda come out? Is that fairly recent?
That was April, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's quite recent. Yeah, so like, yeah, there's like a steady trickle of games.
Yeah, it
There's that
probably has
Telltale
still slowed
Expanse
down.
game. I want to play that.
What?
So
game is
Telltale, The Expanse. Have you seen that on Amazon Prime?
No.
It's originally a book series, but the TV show's real good. It's like basically like far future. There's a colony on Mars. There's a colony on Earth. There's colonies on like the asteroid belts. And like it's been long enough that people have been born and lived life in the asteroid belts, and because they've not been subjected to Earth's gravity, their whole skeletal structure is different. So they're taller and thinner. And they struggle to
Oh.
breathe on Earth, and then Mars and the planet Earth have a war. And it's sort of basically a political / action story
It
about
sounds
that.
really good.
It is good, really good.
What, and Telltale have made a game?
Telltale have made a video game, yeah. So it's
Oh,
like
interesting.
and I've got my eye on it because I do like a Telltale game. I've been slowly working my way through. You can cut this. I've been slowly working my way through the Dark Pictures anthology games. They're quite fun, which is like the
Oh,
sort
like
of,
the Man of Medan shit. And
yeah.
yeah.
I do enjoy those. Just like a couple of whiskies and a Man of Medan night. It's really good fun.
Yeah, like it's not a visual novel, those games. It's more like
Basically,
an interactive
though,
film.
it is. You just play it like
Yeah.
that, like an interactive movie.
Cool. Where was I up to? 7? Yeah. So 7th in the sales ranking is Resident Evil 0.
We've done 0, have we not?
No, we did 4 remake, didn't we? 'Cause we were saying
yeah.
about summer, yeah.
Sorry.
That 5.05 million, which is 1.25 million on the GameCube version, And then the HD remaster that came out, I believe, on PS4 onwards, is done 3.8 million. So it's quite interesting that that's had quite a big life
Yeah.
after its original release, which did fuck all.
Yeah, it was. I guess they would have considered that a disappointment, but then latterly
They
sort of
definitely
sorted
did.
itself out.
Yeah. Do you remember in Itchy Tasty, there's a lot of stuff towards the end about games like this. There's a whole thing about Resident Evil on Nintendo where they, Shinji Mikami was really sort of admired the way that Nintendo went about making games and sort of their ideologies around making games compared to Sony and Microsoft. So he wanted and pushed for this exclusivity deal that they had with Nintendo to put all these games out on there. So the Resident Evil Remake, 0 and 4, which again, 4 didn't last as an exclusive for more than 6 months, if that. So he has apparently now expressed sort of regret about the fact that he chose to do that, because obviously they lost out on so many PS2 sales. I'm pretty sure they did worse than the Outbreak games, for example. So, yeah, the GameCube ones, the remake of Resi 1, which we'll probably get to next year, was so impressive at the time. It just, GameCube didn't move the needle enough and probably didn't have the right audience for it. And Capcom kind of paid for Shinji's idea, or, his sort of dream collaboration between them and Nintendo. Didn't really work out in terms of the moving them, making them the big bucks.
This is also hearsay, because this is just like me and my stupid friends during that era. But like, I've sort of latterly come to appreciate a lot of the games in the GameCube and see it as an actually quite a cool console. Yeah. At the time when the GameCube was out, I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought it was a little kids console for baby games, and like obviously
that's its downfall for sure.
That is so wrong. But yeah, that's what like my teenage self thought about the game. Like, we were all PlayStation, Tony Hawk. Like, this is where the cool games are. So like the audience that would be interested in a Resident Evil game maybe weren't there in the numbers
I think that's
required.
what the book says. Yeah, that seems to be what Capcom thinks.
Whereas you held the fort, mate. You knew that console was cool, and you stuck with it.
I was playing Tony Hawk on that console. Yeah.
Were you? Brilliant.
Yeah. The next game, number 6, is the original Resident Evil, which has a sales of 5.08 million, which is 2.75 million for the original, then 1.13 for the director's cut, and 1.2 for the director's cut DualShock edition. Which
gangbusters.
Arrived at my house today.
Oh, did it?
From Japan, and is in like exemplary condition.
Oh, that is magic.
There is
so good.
Not a scratch on it. It's got both the discs in here.
It kind of confuses me that this is a Japanese version in the front, and it says Biohazard in English letters on there.
There's barely any Japanese on there. There's like a little bit in.
How does that work? Because you studied Japanese a little bit. Like, why can they do both alphabets, Japanese people? Is that why it's on there? Like, what is... do you know what I mean? I don't want to appear ignorant, but at the end of the day, I am ignorant.
So...
I assume a Japanese person would see Biohazard and know what that says, right?
So... What you've got here...
The Capcom logos in
so I don't know if you can
as well, or our alphabet too.
It's really hard to read it on the video version here, but you've got some katakana underneath where it says. So you've got this massive logo, Biohazard Director's Cut. Then you've got some katakana under where it says DualShock version, and that does say Biohazard Directasu Kato. And I can't be asked to read the rest.
That's so good. That is such a nice copy, that.
I was so pleased. I gave him instant feedback. And I'm pretty sure this version, again, you can't really see it very well, but there's a clip there of somebody wearing the Elsa Walker thing. So I don't know if this includes Resident Evil 1.5 on it. It might do. And I know for certain that... From what I read in Itchy Tasty, this game apparently has a revised soundtrack that everybody fucking hates.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. I don't know if I can actually play that game because I don't think I tried one of the other ones that I've got.
It wasn't
the other
region
Biohazards
free.
in my PS3 and it didn't work.
No, they're not.
You can
region
play
free.
Japanese PS3 games in it, but not Japanese PS1 games.
Yeah.
I doubt my PS2 will be region free either.
It was only around the sort of DS, PS3 era that companies just sort of gave up on region locking games. Because I remember it being quite a big thing that the DS was region free. Everybody made quite a big deal of that.
I might have to get a Japanese PS1, mate. See if I can get one of our ventures.
Oh, you might. Yeah, you're going to have to. Because I remember it being a big deal. Because I think I ended up with a couple of American DS games. Like I think I brought Chrono Trigger on the DS in New York, and I tried to trade it in. They wouldn't have it.
That's
like,
fucking lame. Because you can play that on any DS or 3DS.
Yeah.
Fucking knobs.
Yep. But I mean, at the end of the day, I wish I still had that game in a box because I loved that game. Yeah. But I don't.
You need to get a DS. You need to get a 3DS.
Really keen for it.
What else? What's the next one? That was 5. Resident Evil Village, 8.3 million.
Good. Blows my earlier theory out the water.
Yeah. 4. Resident Evil 6, 11.1 million. That did 8.8 million originally on the 360 PS3, and then an extra 2.3 million on PS4, Xbox One, and downloads.
There's 2.3 million absolute lunatics out there.
Yeah, 2.3 people who won't learn a lesson. Third position is Resident Evil 7 with 12.4 million. Second place is Resident Evil 2 Remake with 12.6 million. And number 1 is Resident Evil 5 with 13.9 million, 8.8 million, and then there's the gold version, which was 2.3 million, and then PS4, Xbox One, and download versions, 2.8 million as of June 2023.
I can live with that.
Yes. So that's better than it being Resident Evil 6 anyway.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. Right. On to our lists. My number... What's your number 10? Well, no, actually we know. We both know that Resident Evil 6 is our number 10.
Resident Evil 6 is number 10. Not even close. It had to go there.
Why did you put it as your number 10?
Because it's a genuinely bad game. It's not fun. It represents the death for, 5-6 years of the Resident Evil franchise. And I think...
it needed a lot of rescuing after that.
It needed a lot of rescuing, and the series went dormant after that, and it's just not a fun game. It doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game. It doesn't play like a Resident Evil game. It is just, in my opinion, an affront to what these games should be, and it represents. It makes me angry because it represents everything that's wrong with the gaming industry. Like, we've spoken about this many, many times. Like, not every game has to chase the Fortnite money. Not every game has to be a live service game that's going to sell me battle passes. Like, this game was like, right, we want to make... Resident Evil isn't selling enough, so we're going to change it from being a really, really, like, top-tier horror franchise into a C-tier bad action game. Because it sells more, and it just makes me angry that it exists.
There's been like revisionism in recent years where people think that it's schlocky and fun in a silly way.
Not having it.
It's
not
just,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it was just awful. It just, I don't know. It didn't really handle very well.
The one thing I did like is you can do
silly.
like
There was no
drop
puzzles.
kicks
There was
and...
no.
Oh yeah, like I was saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
All right. It's
just giving up everything. It doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game. Like you're saying, there's no puzzles and stuff. Like it's not what these games are at all. Hate it. Makes me angry. That game.
Yeah. The story seems really stupid. We didn't even get to the worst bits. We played the Leon bit, and that was shit. And that's supposed to be the best bit. So there is a part of me that still thinks one day, as a pure, like, true Resi fan, I have to finish all of it just to see it.
It's like it's a long game, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just
like 3
like
campaigns.
It's not like Resident Evil 1 in 1996 is like 7 hours. Like that is like that's a game I'm like, right, even if I don't like it, I can still bash through it. Resi 6, it's like if I remember it, and this is old information, it's like 18 hours. And I'm just
that
like,
sounds about right.
I cannot do it. 18,
Yeah,
that's the
we
whole
both
day of
sort
my
of agreed,
life.
like, what did we change that to? Was that Dino Crisis?
Maybe.
I think that's what came in and saved the day.
What we need to do is we need to look at the list. It's whatever comes after 5, because we played 5, then went on to 6.
You're right. Hang on.
So whatever episode we did
Yes,
after
it is.
5.
That was Summer of Resi 2022 Part 3.
We
was
moved on to Dino
So
Crisis.
yeah. And we had a much better time.
We did. Even
What is
comes
your-
with downloadable, what is it? Not DLC. It's like unlockable extra costumes. It's like a bone gun, and then there's the main character dressed like Bam Bam or something from the Flintstones.
Did you not start with that and then really not enjoy it and have to go back and...
Yeah, I felt like I was not experiencing the game in the tone that it wanted me to.
Yeah, like properly trying to make people prehistoric for some reason, even though that's not what the game is setting.
No,
Game
not
setting
even,
is at all.
not even nearly. She's a special agent person that turns up to an event that just happens to have dinosaurs.
Is it set in the? Was it set in the future?
I thought it
Or
was
was it
like
set in the present?
present. If it was the future, it's like near future, a bit like Call of Duty Modern Warfare style.
Yeah, because it was basically that guy opened up sort of time rifts and was just like pulling the dinosaurs in, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get this confused with Exoprimal because I feel like that's almost the same story. Well, it's not actually, is it? Because that's just like a weird god ruling a planet and just throwing dinosaurs at you.
Something happened, yeah, and you get there's time mechanics in that as well. Oh god,
I had to look on that. We were talking about something earlier today.
that's gone from my Xbox.
Me and a couple of
by the
friends.
way.
And has it?
Yeah, I'm
It's
not going back.
the concurrent Steam players for Exoprimal is like 450 at the moment, so it's fucking dead.
Do you know what's really upsetting though? Is I was quite good at that game. It upsets me.
You
that
were good at that game.
it's gone.
It's just the same shit every game, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Sit on the payload. Mm-hmm. So for anybody there, if you're thinking about playing Exoprimal, you obviously aren't thinking about it because no one's thinking about it, but that game really needs patching. If Capcom can even be bothered to make it so that the games are not the type of game you play is not defined by the lowest ranked person, because every time you start a game, it feels like you're playing with somebody who's ranked like level 1, even if you aren't, and it puts you on the level 1 mission over and over and over again. It is terrible.
That's a shame. Such a shame.
Yeah. In 9th position, is the game terrible though? We'll find out. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Resident Evil 5.
Oh, okay.
What have
That
you
is
got?
my number 8.
Okay,
What is your number 8?
Resident Evil 1996.
Okay, right. Let's go back to Resident Evil.
Oh, we are
5.
different, aren't we? We are different.
So my number 9 is Resident Evil 0,
Okay.
and yours is Resident Evil 5.
Yep. I liked Resident Evil 5. Like I say, it's the thing that holds it. I don't think it's because like I need to finish this sentence. My introduction to the Resident Evil series was proper because I had played Resident Evil 2 on PS1 as a child, but I never stuck with it. Proper was Resident Evil 5, and I played it co-op with my flatmate at the time, and I had an absolute blast with it. And actually, I remember sitting in lectures, or like, what was it called? It wasn't lectures, labs?
Like tutorial
Yeah,
things or
at
whatever it was,
university
yeah.
when we had computers, just sitting reading the Resident Evil wiki, trying to learn the lore and stuff, and it got me obsessed with Resident Evil like for a hot minute, and I had a wonderful time with it. When we went back and played it again, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, and we had a good time with it. I just think that it doesn't hold up as well today, and if I'm trying to think about like my favourite Resident Evil games, it is obviously slipped down to number 9. But that doesn't mean I don't like it. I just think it's got some issues that I think modern video games have solved.
I absolutely agree with that, and that's why I put mine just one place higher at number 8, because co-op has historically solved a lot of niggling issues with a lot of games. Can make most things more certainly more palatable, and most times can make them more fun. Resident Evil 5, yeah, we did have a good time with it, but it's very easy to see what the flaws of it are, and that it's a bit too bombastic, it's too silly.
Yeah.
The setting is very questionable in this day and age.
It also sort of retrospectively annoys me, and like I've just said that Resident Evil 6 makes me like viscerally angry. Like Resident Evil 5, the lesson that they learned equaled Resident Evil 6 from that. So like
Totally.
it is the first sort of step along the wrong path for the series, I think. Well, actually, no, let's be honest. I mean, like, let's be totally honest here. As much as the game is like one of the best games of all time, Resident Evil 4 is probably the first step along the wrong path. Not in terms of Resident Evil 4 being a wrong game, but that was when they started moving Resident Evil into the action genre. And I think like 4, 5, and 6 has been increasingly action orientated. Feel free to tell me I'm talking rubbish, but I think
you're right.
Resident Evil 5 was a continuation, and I think they learned the wrong lessons from Resident Evil 4.
That's what I was going to say, and potentially struggled to top it, and just went the wrong way with it. I can't put a finger. I mean, I could Google it right now. In fact, I'm going to. So, Resident Evil 4 was directed by Shinji Mikami. Who directed Resident Evil 5? Because I don't think it was him. That was Yasuhiro Ampo and Kenichi Ueda, and I don't know what either of them had done beforehand.
I don't recognise their names, but you're more likely to than I am.
So, Mikami had nothing to do with it. And I'm pretty sure at that point in time, he probably had already left for Clover Studios.
Okay.
Which was a sort of a subsidiary at that point of Capcom. But Mikami was probably off making things like Akami. So, just seems maybe a byproduct of not having the same type of direction and thoughts about what Resident Evil should be, and as you very succinctly put it, learn the wrong lessons. But we still had fun.
Yeah,
I still had fun
like
with
5.
Resi 1.
I do like 5.
Yeah, and you've put Resi 1 at number 8.
Number 8. Yeah, I like this game. Really good. Really good game. Had a great time with it. Or having like, what am I like? You said I'm very close to the end now.
Yes.
In the lab, I've started putting those discs into computers.
Yeah, you've done 2 of the 3 MO discs.
Yeah.
You've got 1 more to go, and then you're on the final boss.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 1 is my number 7. So, again, we're
Similar.
largely in agreement there.
I had a great time.
How high 0 is for you.
We spoke about how surprised we were about Resident Evil 1, how... This is a terrible sentence. We were pleasantly surprised how much we liked it. We thought... or am I grouping you in, and did you expect to like it as much as you did?
It's funny because I feel like the Resident Evil 1 PlayStation version, because my Resident Evil fandom probably really came to a head around the GameCube era, I've probably played the remake of it way more than I have the original. So most of my memories are tied to the remake.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would probably always look back on it and probably think, kind of like Resident Evil 3 that we discussed in the last episode, where I'm like, oh yeah, original Resi's pretty good. I will probably have said, oh, original Resi's better than 3. It would go 2, 1, 3. But obviously I don't think that anymore.
Yeah.
Having redone them now, I think
it's interesting.
A lot more snappy and fun and better to control, and just a more interesting and sort of refined video game. Whereas Resident Evil 1, you can see it was their first step into doing this. And I think, although it is funny, and I don't want to spoil too much of what the next podcast episode is going to be, so we will probably cut this quickly in a minute.
Yeah.
I just find that the shitty voice acting and story
or
writing stops being funny halfway through, and towards the end, you haven't even got there yet, but there's a big sort of chat at the end of the game between Wesker and whoever you're controlling, and it is like just laborious and mind-numbing in how shit it is. It is not funny, and it just grates because it goes on for quite a while, and it's so bad. I just found it becoming annoying at this point.
I found myself, so again, to be really succinct and quick, what I found was that, like, in my head, Resident Evil was like the go-to or sort of the OG console horror experience, and playing it in 2023, there's a lot to it that just pulls me right out of it and is a little bit silly. Like, the dogs look goofy, and the music that appears whenever the dogs appear is like funny to a point. And I know that like Resident Evil has sort of brought itself up on schlockiness and like there is a comedy element of these games, but this like strays too much into slapstick comedy that I'm just like, this is for me. But but don't
not
get me
really
wrong.
intended at this point either, is it?
No.
It's kind of like Evil Dead 1 versus Evil Dead 2, right?
Exactly,
They
but
didn't mean it to be funny, but it just is.
Totally, but I do need to admit, like I would always try and admit when I'm wrong. And I remember talking about how I thought the Resident Evil puzzles were obtuse, almost like point and click games. You just had to sort of bash your head against the wall. They're not like that at all. They're largely intuitive. There's a few really fun ones in it, and I was totally wrong on the puzzle front. That is, they're quite good for the most.
Maybe the remake
part.
is what got that slightly twisted, and we'll find that out when we go back.
We'll
to
find
that. It
that
could
out,
be that.
yeah.
What is your? So that's Resident Evil 1 is my number 7.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your number 7?
Resident Evil 0.
Resident Evil 0. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're largely grouping them
Kinda.
in the bottom 4.
I really liked Resident Evil 0. Again, like there's the odd bits that I didn't quite get, the opera singing in the rain on the mountain. And then there's inventory management that was annoying, like having to like what was it I remember having to leave like lots of that's it. You have to leave stuff on the ground and then go back and get it. That was a pain in the neck.
That was a stupid idea.
I think
I don't know why they stuck it.
It looks nice. It controls really well. For the most part, the boss encounters are great. They're also funny in a great way, like the hug that scorpion always gives people. The train level is really, I think, really interesting and really fun.
I like that setting.
Yeah, I largely like this game. I think it's great. There's like you say, the item box really lets itself down. But I can see, like I think we spoke about this in the podcast. We can see why they did it.
Maybe they thought, this is it's too antiquated now, having a magical box that follows you around. It doesn't make any sense.
Just doesn't work in a gameplay.
But that made the backtracking eminently worse.
Exactly, because that's a thing that I think I've got a constant like love-hate relationship with the Resident Evil games, is the backtracking and inventory management. I think the inventory management and having to do it is largely a good thing, because it creates tension and it makes you really think about what you're carrying with you, and certainly in terms of like health kits and stuff like that. But there are periods where I find myself just going back and forth to the box to move stuff around. And the lack of a box makes it way worse in Resident Evil 0. So you ended up just sort of being like a teenager's bedroom, and you just sort of had a pile near your save spots that you would move when you move to the next save spot that you'd be using. I don't know. Sorry, I've been hijacking now. What's your feeling on this?
No, it's fine. Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything you're saying. Another thing about that is, as well as that, they reduced the inventory size of each character to like 6 slots each, saying, well, you've actually got 12, but you're only controlling one at a time, so that's not helpful. And then you're having to trade between the two of them.
Yeah.
They introduced a lot of interesting stuff, like the monkeys were quite scary.
Yeah. Oh, the monkeys were, and being able to pass stuff between each other in different ways, that was really cool.
Yeah, when they nailed those puzzle ideas. So there was quite a few bits of that at the beginning, and then it gets back towards the end when you're kind of like splitting them up. Mm-hmm. They worked that out quite nicely, and it was an idea that they had from the N64 era, because that's when it was supposed to have come out. They were really into this idea of zapping between the two characters, as they called it.
It's probably the first time they could, right?
They had a cartridge, so they could. They didn't have loading times, and then they somehow managed to transpose that to the GameCube discs. Mm-hmm. So, it's an incredible feat of visual and mechanical engineering.
What do you think character-wise?
Getting a bit tired, that formula. Yeah, I mean, Billy's okay. Rebecca's okay too. It's just the story is really dumb in the end. Yeah, the end was, and of course it introduces the stupid continuity error of where Rebecca then goes to the mansion, and when you see her in Resident Evil 1 as Chris, it's like she's never seen a zombie in her life. She's just murdered millions on a train like hours earlier. And then the opera shit and the whole evil Wesker kind of watching them on the monitor and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people think it wasn't necessarily, there was no need for it to exist.
But I do like it, and I've got I don't know why, but
dislike it.
I came away from I've got a real soft spot for Resident Evil 0, and like everything you're saying, like the negatives and stuff like we spoke about, are totally true, but I just kind of love it despite itself.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a good game. I definitely do like it. What is your number 7?
Number 7's Resident Evil 0. So number 6.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's because I've written Alex and David at the top of the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Then every number is wrong. It starts at number 2. So yeah, what's your number 6?
I was going to say what's yours, but then it's probably not working because we're not doing the same. It's not crisscrossing in the same way. My number 6, I've got Dino Crisis.
Okay.
Again, big fan. Do you know what? Like trying to think of like, and this is probably that makes this podcast quite fun, in that like. The honest answer is I really like Dino Crisis. I just liked everything else in the list better that's above it. I enjoyed it. I'm trying to think why I would have picked why. There's no reason. There is no reason. I just liked the rest of the games more. I thought they had maybe had more to them. But Dino Crisis is a lovely change of pace on this list.
I agree.
And the dinosaur stuff is fun and funny in places, and fear-inducing in other places. Like the times that T-Rex would appear was quite scary at times. Mm-hmm. Also funny because there's that sort of escape on the hovercraft at the end of the game where the T-Rex is chasing you through the water. That was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. And
that was.
Yeah, it's just a really cool game.
Yeah.
Sort of got invested in the story in a way as well that I didn't expect.
The story is just so fucking mad.
Yeah.
But it is still slightly grounded within that one specific universe. It never seems to go out of it. It's not like where you get the Resident Evil games where like something mutates into a fucking kraken or whatever, like in 5.
Yeah.
Or like, like how Village has kind of big metal tank fight with that dude.
You're right.
This was all it's just dinosaurs and a fucking mental scientist. But like the logic behind all of it and why it's happening, and just the as you say, the set pieces that actually happen where you just got loads of T-Rex nonsense and hovercrafts and time rips and all this kind of shit is silly. But yeah, I just really like that game. I really like the puzzles. They make you feel really smart.
Where have you got Dino Crisis? Oh, some of the computer puzzles are legit, aren't they?
Yeah. I have got Dino Crisis at number 3.
Oh, nice. I'm pleased to see it.
I just really like it. It's my Resident Evil 0, I guess. You're saying you really like it despite its flaws and stuff. I'm a real massive fan of Dino Crisis. My number 6 is Resident Evil 7.
Okay.
Which I think is largely there because the end of the game is just not up to it.
You're totally right.
It cannot carry itself after you leave the Baker Mansion. Which, fair enough. Every Resident Evil game pretty much will make you leave where you are and go somewhere else, sometimes multiple times. And that needs to happen largely to keep things fresh, to keep the game length at a reasonable state and not be like 3 hours long. But when it ends up with you just on a boat shooting mold men and there's no horror at all anymore.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Now I'm regretting where I've put it. Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right.
You've probably put it wherever you have because the opening of the game is just so strong.
Yeah, that's the thing that reminds me about it.
The Baker family are incredible.
Yes.
Jack especially.
Jack, yeah, and I was watching it. I keep wanting to call him Born Slippy, but I think that's a band or a song.
Fucking Slippy Slides, yeah.
Slippy Slides, yeah. There's the bit in like where he looks at all the sort of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village sort of stalking enemies, and Jack is by far appears to be the most authentic. He doesn't appear to follow any sort of set pattern. He genuinely seems to look for the character, and like for the most part, other than maybe Mr. X, he's sort of fairly always present. And I just think like Jack is up there with the most intimidating. There's a good list of intimidating enemies in Resident Evil, but like he's up there for me. Like I just found him like unsettling in a way, and I really liked the sort of. For me, when I played Resident Evil 7, it felt like maybe this is not true, but to me it felt like a bit of a departure and a sort of embarkation on a new set of horror. So like. Yeah. It was sort of southern Texas Chainsaw Massacre horror in a way that just felt fresh for the Resident Evil series at least. And Jack was such a good enemy. But then you're right.
Has 2 incredible boss fights.
Yes.
The one where he tries to run you over in the car.
Yes.
The one where he's got those massive shears.
Yes.
And you fight him with a chainsaw. They are excellent set pieces in that game, and they're hilarious and they're scary and everything at the same time. It's I mean,
The-
it saved
the
the franchise.
granny?
We probably wouldn't care about the series anywhere near as much anymore if they hadn't have made this video
Oh.
game and carried on from where they
I
have. 'Cause
still
we've had a lot of
remember-
good since then.
Like the fear that is induced of like creeping around under the floorboards and trying to escape from Jack, I still can feel it in my stomach when I think about him. And then that granny that would randomly appear.
And
But
a
you're
massive
totally right.
undercarriage when you have that boss fight with her, with bugs coming out of her gusset.
You're totally right though. Like the game cannot carry itself in its sort of latter third,
No. Yeah,
which is a shame.
to a level that I don't believe Resident Evil Village suffered from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's higher for me. So where did you put Resi 7 for you?
Resi 7's number 3 for me.
Number 3, okay.
Yeah. I may. Now we've discussed it. I was actually tempted to retcon while we were discussing it, but I was like, no, I'll leave it how it is.
Yeah, we'll see how the points
Yeah.
because that's got 13 points based off of the.
I think
the
I may
system that
want
I've
to.
devised.
I think I may want to revise that now we've discussed it, and you've reminded me of things that I didn't quite remember. But
All right.
maybe only by one place. We'll see.
Okay, when we get up to that 3.
Yeah,
slot,
when we get to the
talk
end,
about it again.
we'll talk about it.
So what's your number 5?
Resi 3 is for me.
Same.
For number 5.
Same. Yeah, same for me.
Great game, really fun. I like during this sort of era of Resident Evil, they were sort of everything was happening either concurrently or within a sort of like close time of each other, and that you can see like, oh, this is while this is happening in the mansion, and this is happening in the police station, this is happening in the city. I really like it that you're seeing the same sort of disaster from multiple angles, and it's just a really fun game. It's a cool game. But again, another one that I liked way more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah. We enjoyed some of the puzzles in that. We really enjoy Nemesis as a character. I think he's just, and the what is it, the live selection dilemmas that you've got between the two things and how it changes the way it ends. Just a really cool mechanic that they've not really done ever since then at all. It was never really repeated, unless it has been in one of these obscure sort of side spin-off games that we haven't touched yet.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm aware, that's the only game that asks you to make those kind of choices and affects the game as a result of it. And I love that about it. And Nemesis really did feel like not to be fucked with.
So how did he feel? Yeah, so
fuck with him.
how did he feel? Did you play Resident Evil 3 when it was released? And has he become more goofy as time goes on? Because I find him quite, like, you're right, he's not to be fucked with, but he's also very goofy. And, like, he just, stars. And then he'll just sort of storm about shouting stars at you. Can you remember?
Well, I probably would have played this. I definitely would have played it with Chris, and I probably played it on my Dreamcast. So that's probably like 2001, 2002. So yeah, or around that time anyway. So not when it's first released. I don't know if I've ever found him to be entirely goofy. I see exactly what you mean with just the silly voice that they give him and the fact that he just repeats the same line every time.
Yeah.
But I've always just found him to just be a ball ache. Like I think we said in the last podcast, like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake, I found him a lot easier to kind of just bait and dodge round and almost ignore. Whereas if I was doing a run of trying to beat Nemesis every time, I don't know if I could do it. Like I genuinely could not do the first Nemesis fight when I played it for the last episode.
Okay.
Like I just gave up and just went in the police station in the end because it was just too hard.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. He's you're totally right, because I found Mr. X much more intimidating, and I was much more unsettled because I knew that he was sort of within reason, always present, searching for me, in a way that like I was aware that the guy in like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, he was appearing when the game decided he was going to appear. And because of that, it was easier to feel safe. But when he was present, he's obviously much more of a danger, I think.
Yes.
If that makes
sense. Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense. Yeah. I think we've always just enjoyed Nemesis, the fact that he walks around with a bazooka on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Like I remember me and Chris have always just sort of thought like, oh, Nemesis is so cool.
He is.
But you're right, he is a bit of a goober. We'll see next year how we feel about him in the remake and if that makes him better or worse.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that. I've been, like I say, all the time. We've wanted to play that game for a while.
Yeah.
And I've played about an hour of it, and I liked what I played of it.
Okay. I'm so interested to hear how that goes. What are we on to now? Number 4?
4?
Yeah.
I've got Resident Evil Village at number 4.
As do I.
I really like this game a lot.
Me
I
too.
like that again. Like to build on the Resident Evil 7, talking about sort of a new aspect of horror. I like that 8 sort of explores the gamut. So it's got
I love that fact.
It's got the sort of classic horror of Resident Evil in the first area with Lady Dimitrescu, and then it'll explore. Yeah, like I say, it just goes through different types of horror, which I really like. It's like I say, as a pretty I wouldn't say I'm like a ride or die horror fan, but I'm a pretty big horror fan, and I'm interested in the different types that it does. And that horror isn't just one thing, and you can elicit horror from people in different ways. And over the years, they've found different ways to do it, and this game sort of will explore it. And I think it was really cool. And it even does, like, it's got the psychological horror bit where you get the lady with the puppet that seems to be like, which is actually quite silly, just sort of blowing some sort of chemical at you that's making you see things. But if you sort of set that to one side and think about it as actually how the game plays, that is the psychological stuff where you're like running about, not sure what you're seeing is true, and you're like getting chased by, like, I don't know, some sort of doll. And then, yeah, like I said, the Dimitrescu stuff. And then there's like the more sort of dangerous horror stuff, I guess, of the guy with the hat. What's he called? I've forgotten.
In Heisenberg.
Yeah, it's just more of like an action game, and then the game just goes wild, and you end up in a tank at some point. It's just really,
Chris Redfield, Call of Duty.
Chris Redfield, Call of Duty section. Then there's the werewolves and stuff, like that whole village that is a sort of base of operations.
Don't forget the big baby.
The big baby, the upgrade tree, like the body horror stuff, because Ethan's getting constantly like mashed up.
Yeah,
I just think this.
Ethan
this
is a complete goober as well.
He is. This is a cool game, and like I say, it's just, this feels like a more, and this is why maybe I would like to revision it. It feels like a much more confident game than 7 does to me.
Totally.
7
was confident for half of itself, and then lost its way, and they ran out of ideas. This just keeps throwing wild ideas at the wall.
It does, and I think most of it sticks.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Though it's almost like a watershed moment at this point. Of 7 was probably the watershed moment of Resident Evil doesn't have to be a zombie game anymore. It can be. I mean, I know the previous games had started to mess with, like, you know, feral humanoid creatures or whatever with different types of viruses that weren't specifically zombies, but these ones, as you said, really started to tap into that hammer horror element of, like, you know, this game's got vampires and werewolves in it, which on paper you may look at if you're a total Resi purist and be like, well, you've ruined it. What are you doing? This is not what this series is. But they asked the question of why can't it be what the series is in certain elements of it, and they were proven right, because it's just really fun to be seeing how they make, and there's been a lot of horror trying to do this in the last 10, 20 years of modernizing and updating things like vampires and werewolves to make them scary again, whereas they've probably gone a bit silly in terms of, like, you know, an American Werewolf in London, or all the various, like, Dracula films that tried to be a little bit sexy and silly, whereas, you know, this was really trying to make these, like, visceral, like, horrible, violent, scary creatures again, and it largely worked. Like, Dimitrescu is scary. All the werewolves at the beginning of the game proper shit me up.
I even think that it does a good job, and this, I'm apologising because I think I'm actually forgetting some of the areas that you do, but I think if taken in isolation, it would be easy to look at this game and think they feel like, because they're so different in tone, they feel like these different games almost that are sort of tied together by the central hub. But I even like how in the early point in the game when you're like, well, you end up going through the town, and then there's the people that live in the town that are, like, obviously scared of what's happening, and then I can't remember how it gets to it, but you end up in a room or watching all of the enemies in each sort of area, sort of the big bosses interacting with each other, which to me, like, grounds it within its own world and also links it together in a way that you can see how they're all linked to each other and how they know each other and why maybe they're quite disparate in gameplay and how they're approaching things. But I really enjoy how it ties itself together like that. Does that make sense? Like, you're by the time you meet each person, you're aware that they all know who each other are, and they talk to each other. And essentially, especially Lady Dimitrescu, she'll refer to the other enemies as well as you're going through, and you can hear her speaking. I really like how they take, like I say, what is essentially very different worlds and tie it together in a way that feels cohesive. And I never felt jarred in a way that you're totally right. And when you were talking about seven does. In that, like, there's like the good part of 7, then there's like, oh, this is much weaker.
Yes. Yeah. It's just like dumb fun throughout, isn't it? Like, it never stops being enjoyable. It can get a bit, it gets quite difficult towards the end where they're just throwing werewolves at you and like mini bosses and stuff. But yeah, I never found myself not having fun with Village.
Oh, and it was always scary. Like, even that. Think about that bit near the start where you're sort of going through the cornfield and you can hear something going around, because you've already encountered werewolves and you know how dangerous they are.
Yeah, that opening section when it tries to be Resident Evil 4 again was fucking hard.
Yeah, such a good game.
Frenetic. Yeah, really good. So we've done our 3s. Because that's Dino Crisis for me, Resident Evil 7 for you. So now herein lies the issue of Alex's scoring system of giving 9 points to the game that comes second and 10 to the game that comes first. Is if ours are alternate of each other, we're going to have 2 games scoring 19 points.
I think they may do. What have you got?
Now?
Let's hear what you've got. Since we've got the same 2 games left, let's hear that, because I've been going first. Let's have you dive in.
My number 2, as I feel that it's probably the less I think it had less to do to improve and update itself, and I think it was updating and improving a game that probably didn't need to have that done. I have gone for Resident Evil 4 Remake in the number 2 slot, as I think that I love the original so much that this game for me, still in my head a little bit, had not as much reason for being and didn't necessarily capture exactly the spirit of 4 that I remembered. But at the same time, it's still an absolutely phenomenal game in its own right. And it took the formula and it did modernize it. And there was very little about actually playing it that is bad in any way.
Yeah, I totally agree. My 2 is 4 as well.
Hey,
so it makes our life easier. Yeah, I love Resident Evil 4 is like an all-time great now, having played it. I think, like, I'm not going to give it like a top 10 or anything, because I don't feel comfortable with that, because I would need to actually sit and think about that properly. But like, yeah, it's just so much fun to play. It is to me up there with obviously our number 1 game. A good melding of action and horror in a way that is really fun. The upgrade systems, the way you sort of level your stuff up is fantastic. I think for me, the only slight bit that let it down is there's the odd boss battle that I think is a bit weak. So like, there's the bit in the barn. It's not the boss battle is itself is fine, but it is really just a sort of move left and right and shoot it till it's dead. And then I didn't really enjoy, what was the guy that turns into like an octopus? The little midget lad. Is it an octopus and he like climbs the walls and you've got to shoot him?
Salazar, is it?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy his fight. And then there was there was that part where like I ended up at him and I was trying to backtrack to do collectibles that the game seemed to suggest I could do.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't let me do it. But I don't want that to detract from what was a stellar game. And you're saying that you're right. I think from what I've played, at least, I've not played a huge amount of the original Resident Evil 4, but from what I've played, you're right. It probably had the least to do to make it great, but they did everything you would have expected them to do in an era where that we live in game fandom, that companies often do the wrong things. It's nice and should be noted when a company will make the right decision almost each and every turn. and this is this. I don't know. Based on what I've played, the definitive version of this game, which you can't often say about remakes. So
absolutely,
what a job they did on that.
I mean, I will absolutely say that it is mechanically the most accomplished Resident Evil game there's ever been made. There's no question.
Yeah.
Like, this is the ultimate version of the format of the modern Resident Evil game, and it feels absolutely perfect in your hands.
Yeah.
There's no question there. And that leads us to both of our number one picks, which will almost certainly be the number one when we've put them all together, and that's the Resident Evil 2 remake. So I'm still going through the mathematics of the rest of it. So David, tell us why you put that at number one first of all.
It's just, to me, it's the most honestly, it's the most enjoyable one. I think it is. They have taken, I'm trying to think of a way to put this, but they've essentially just taken what was already a pretty good game, and they've just thought, how would we have done it in a modern sort of like take of this game, rather than, it feels less to me, it feels less remake and more reimagining. And I don't know if that's fair or not, because like I say, I think I've played about half of the PS1 Resident Evil 2 games, so like take my opinion on that with a pinch of salt. But it's just fun. Like Mr. X is, like I say, like when he makes an appearance, I think I agree. Like, I totally agree with you what you said. That he eventually becomes a formality that you can sort of just run around and ignore.
Yeah.
But I'd say like the first 2/3 at least of your time with interacting with Mr. X, he feels dangerous. He's scary. Like you feel like you're genuinely being hunted.
Oh, you just cannot pause for breath at all.
No. And then like there's some of like my favourite moments in horror games where you've been like, you're walking through an area and then a licker comes out, and you know that if you're slow and you're quiet, and there's bits where like I was playing the game and I was like slowly backing away from a licker, shotgun pointed at it in case things kicked off, and then just like getting into a room that I knew wouldn't follow me and like breathing a sigh of relief.
Those lickers are savage.
Yeah, they're savage, and I like I said before when we were doing the podcast, I like that the lickers and Mr. X contrast one another, so that if you end up in a situation where they're both there, there's nothing you can do to sort of try and keep them both happy. There's no way you can do it. So like obviously speed and just running for your life will deal with Mr. X for the most part, whereas you have to be slow and methodic and quiet when the lickers are around. So if you sort of back yourself into a situation where they're both around, that's a really dangerous scenario, and I really like that. The mansion, I love the mansion. It feels, not the mansion, it's a police station. I'm still doing it.
To be fair, you're actually playing in the mansion as we speak. Yeah.
The police station's awesome. Obviously, no police station in real life is going to be like that, but I love the puzzles. And I think they are interesting, and they make you think, they make you feel clever, but they're not difficult in a way that you're not going to complete the game for the most part. The game looks incredible. It plays really well. It plays like a modern game, and yeah, I don't know. I really like the characters. Like even Ada Wong. I know, was it not people got annoyed at her, or was that in the?
No, that's 4 remake.
Is that 4 remake? Like I thought she was decent. Yeah, really good game, and it's hard. I'm finding it hard to talk about this game succinctly because it's hard to really say where this game put a foot wrong in terms of what it had to play with. In
probably
the
bosses. I think we agreed at the time.
Yes,
some of the bosses were a little bit samey.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Would be a potential issue, but as a series, it's not necessarily done bosses perfectly at any point in time. But in terms of like marrying modern style of gameplay for Resident Evil with classic Resident Evil setting,
yeah,
it's like the ultimate. It's the ultimate combination of classic and modern Resident Evil in a way that is just wholly satisfying through all of it. It's, as you said, it is scary, plays with lighting in amazing ways. Mr. X keeps it tense the whole time. It's well acted. It's just beautiful. There's so little wrong with it. It's probably is in my top 10 of anything, I would say.
There's probably, and I'm trying to think about it, there's few areas in this game that I genuinely didn't like. I look through this list, and for the most part, don't quote me on this, but like there's probably aspects of each game that I didn't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really an aspect of the 2 remake that I didn't like.
Yeah.
There's not like a section. There's like the weakest section is probably the sewer section, but I quite enjoyed it. I did enjoy my time down there. It's not like I was like, oh, I hate that part of the game.
Yeah.
It's just such a good game, man. So good.
Yeah. It's so good.
I mean, it says as much as it's probably the only game in this list that I'm looking for. I did 2 playthroughs before we recorded the podcast.
Yeah.
Just loved it.
I think it is. Yeah. So,
how did the maths ring out? Because like I say, after having chatted with you, I think I got maybe carried away with Jack. So maybe Resident Evil 7 isn't as high on my list as I've got it. So let's see how it shakes out, and then we can maybe play with 7 a bit.
Sure. Although what I will also say before we do that is that I think the original Resident Evil 2 is one of those games that I struggle to, not struggle to, but I always hold in such a high regard that I do struggle to compare it with the remake or any of the other Resident. Like in my head right now, I would probably still say the original Resident Evil 2 may be my favorite Resident Evil game
really?
ever, but I really want to. I'm looking forward to getting properly critical about that game next time we pick it up.
Yeah.
I'm
looking forward to it now because I think I can handle it, given that we've done 1 and 3
Definitely. Now. Yeah, definitely. And playing it in that seamless HD and all that shit, you're gonna have. Yeah, it's so good.
It's gonna have a good time. I again cannot. If you're going to play Resident Evil 3, if you get that HD remake. Not remake.
Yes.
That's what do you call it? Patch? Patch?
Yeah. This fan mod. Yeah, it's like a mod, isn't it?
Yeah. It makes the game look so good.
Yeah, that was in the description of the podcast for anybody who hasn't heard that one yet. So it is there if you want to go find it. We tell you how to go get it. So, based on our points system, which, as I said at the beginning, the game that we both ranked. So for each of our rankings, the games will get 10 points if they're number 1, then 9, then 8, all the way down to if they're in 10th position where it just gets 1 point. So I've added the totals of each of the scores from me and David for our individual rankings together. So in last place, it should surprise nobody that Resident Evil 6 has 2 points, which is 1 point each from us putting it in last.
If you think Resident Evil 6 is a good game and you had fun with it, please get in touch and tell us about it, because I would love to hear the argument in the point of view to tell me why this is a good game. We'd love it. Would love it. There must be people out there.
What are we missing in this?
Yeah, exactly.
We have collectively ranked Resident Evil 5 in 9th position with 5 points, which is where you put it anyway. Then Resident Evil 0 comes in 8th place with 6 points.
Okay.
Resident Evil 1 comes in 7th place with 7 points. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis comes in at 6th place with 12 points. And then we have joint 4th, Resident Evil 7 and Dino Crisis with 13 points each. Then Village is 3rd with 14. And then 4 and 2 remakes are 2nd and 1st respectively.
How do you feel about that list? I'm okay with that, as long as
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's like I say, if I was going to rejig this, I'd probably put 7 into 4th rather than 3rd. So it doesn't actually really change my top 3.
So it actually has swapped Village and 7 around for you anyway.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that. I think that's probably right for me.
Yeah, so the only thing it's really done for your list is
Dino Crisis,
Resi 1 up and Dino Crisis up as well.
Yeah. And like I say, I enjoyed all those games, so I'm not going to fight over that. I think that's pretty okay. And we're talking in terms of my 5 to 8. We're talking degrees here. Like honestly, you could probably interchange all of those, and I wouldn't have too much of an issue with those.
Same. So, just to recap for everybody there, so far we have a top 10 of the Resident Evil games we have covered, including Dino Crisis, for this podcast. They are in 10th position, Resident Evil 6, 9th position, Resident Evil 5, 8th is Resident Evil 0. 7 is Resident Evil 1. 6 is Resident Evil 3. 5 is Dino Crisis. Sorry, joint 4th is Resident Evil 7 and Dino Crisis. 3rd is Resident Evil Village. 2nd is Resident Evil 4 Remake. And number 1 is the Resident Evil 2 Remake. And yeah, I am happy with that.
Yeah, that's a good list.
I
Really
think
good list.
on the basis of it, maybe from an objective standpoint, how important it was, the level of horror that it introduced and the way that it turned the series around, Resident Evil 7 probably should be above Dino Crisis, or at least on par, even though I have a soft spot for it. It's not as important, it's not as accomplished, it's a heart pick, whereas the head pick probably is Resident Evil 7. So I'm not bothered that it's Dino Crisis has dropped down 2 places from how I ranked it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like everything you said about Resident Evil 7 in terms of the weak points is absolutely spot on, but like the fact, I do think a lot of we can thank Resident Evil 7 for the fact that we've got a healthy in kicking series as it is, because if 7 had come out and bombed and been a complete failure, I think it's pretty fair to say we don't see the rest of these games in the way that we do. We may we may get the remakes because they seem to be their own thing, doing in their own direction, but I don't think it's a given necessarily. I think maybe at that point they just think, right, we've killed Resident Evil, let's move on. There is that chance.
Yeah.
So it is an important game for the franchise and the series, and I'm looking forward to when we come back to having done more Resident Evil games to see how this shakes out. We need to keep a note of this and see how it compares years apart and come back to it.
Yes, I'll add it to our main spreadsheet, and we'll definitely keep a look at this. That was fun.
And once the podcast comes out, it might be worth putting the list on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, so people can see it.
Yeah, I will. I'll do it in a really cool looking way, don't you worry.
Yes. And, well, I guess next up we've got Resident Evil OG on the PS1 to talk about.
Yes, the continuation of the brief discussion we've had about it today.
You've managed 2 playthroughs. You've managed 2 playthroughs. Well done.
Yep, I did a Jill and a Chris.
Do you have I guess it's probably
Jill. 100%
yeah.
is the preference. Yeah, you get the grenade launcher for a start, and you get more inventory and a gun at the beginning.
So what do you get instead of the grenade launcher from
Nothing.
Oh my god.
So
I relied on that quite a lot with the hunters.
Yeah, exactly. I had to use Magnum by the end. I had to carry that around. I dumped every gun but the Magnum for the end of that game because I ran out of.
When can I start using? Can I start whipping my Magnum out now? Am I close enough to the end that I can start whapping it about?
As far as I remember from my Chris playthrough on the final boss, it took 3 Magnum shots and that was the end. So you probably safe if you've got loads of ammo to take it.
Yeah, I've never used it yet. Not used the old maggers. It's not called a Magnum in this game though, is it? It's like a Colt or something.
Yours has got whatever that pack is that's been updated onto yours.
It's changed the name.
Names into
has
names.
it?
Yeah. Yours has got
funny.
like it's kind of something like a Thunderhawk or something. It's not called that, but it's got something Hawk in it.
Yeah.
There was like I think your gun's called a Beretta and all this.
Yeah,
like,
my gun's a Beretta.
They've changed all the names. Yeah.
Oh, that's
it's not
funny.
just handgun anymore. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Clearly, I noticed as well, actually, briefly when you were on the status screen, they've put like the Resident Evil remake picture of Jill in the little like. It shows a picture of her face in the corner.
Yeah,
that's like the remake one from the GameCube. Well, that was really odd that they decided to do that. Maybe they just couldn't like up-res that picture because it's too blurry.
Maybe. I mean, some of the pictures are funny. I did send you a picture of the Wesker as a scientist.
The Wesker in his lab with his labs.
Oh,
yeah.
so good. It looks like a melted mannequin.
It's awful, yeah.
It's fantastic.
It looked like AI generated. It was horrible.
Yeah, it looked terrible, didn't it?
Yeah.
We need to go on AI, whatever it's called, and Wesker in a lab coat and see what we get.
Yeah.
And then compare the two.
Speaking of, actually, as a brief aside, this... Oh, maybe that's not actually been spoken of. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
Ignore that. We'll cut that. Let's wrap up and go to bed.
It's time to go. And I guess that brings us to the end of another episode of the When It Was You podcast. If you liked what you heard, and even if you didn't, why not give our numbers a bump by subscribing to our podcast feed of your choice and giving us a 5-star review if you have that option on your podcast. If you prefer to imbibe your podcast as a visual format, you can head on over to YouTube and search a When It Was You podcast, where you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If the podcast isn't enough for your bi-weekly dose of Winner Is You chattery, you can also follow us on Twitter at WinnerIsYouPod, and you can even send us an email to tell us how wrong we are about our gaming opinions by writing to winnerisyoupod@gmail.com. Alex and I also have Twitter, or X, I don't know what it's called anymore, at DavidSmiley1 and at SuperThrillix, respectively. Alex, any housekeeping? We've got a Gears Intel podcast that has just come out where we are reviewing some sort of book.
Yeah, I've still got it right behind me because I don't tidy up enough. That is the Gears of War Kilo Squad Survivor's Log.
Basically,
to do with Gears of War Judgment. Basically.
Yeah, to do because we're never escaping Gears of War Judgment ever.
No.
To the end of time, Kelsey's going to dig up some sort of lost comic or banner that we're going to have to review.
That was so funny when he pulled that on us. We're all expecting to, as we're doing those episodes chronologically, we're thinking Gears Tactics up next, rubbing our hands ready for a genuinely good game. Oh, actually, lads, I've just found that there's a sort of an underground, lesser thought of book that we need to read about. Gears Judgment. Sorry.
It was a good book, though.
It was a good book.
Probably better than the game, actually. And
probably.
Alex, what are you going to give us? Because I like this part of the podcast. You're going to give us a sneak peek on your next.
The next
topic.
Well, I'm currently livid at the poll, as always, for the Video Game Hall of Fame because the open world games I lost by like one vote for Elden Ring. Elden Ring, which lost out to Red Dead Redemption 2. And you know how I feel about that game.
I do.
I am feeling like I need to give it another chance because everybody keeps telling me to. So next up is party games, and I don't know what I can get away with because in my head, well, for starters, Mario Kart I feel is a party game.
Yeah, surely.
And Smash Bros, stuff like that. I don't want to go like too dumb and be like, oh, I'm gonna pick Mario Party. I genuinely can't think of anything else other than when I think of party game, I just think Mario Party. Like
in my student days,
or...
in my student days, was it Lights Camera Action? It was like Buzz, but from
seen it.
Seen it. That's it. Yeah, I absolutely loved seeing it, and my friends did as well.
Actually,
every time we went round to someone's house, it was like David brings Seen It, and we'll drink before we go out and play Seen It. And every time I won,
I knew all the answers because I'd done the questions too many times. And I was basically cheating because I could remember it.
I suspect the one that, given that you and I are not VR advocates, it probably won't come up. But the other one is that jumps to mind is the one where someone puts on their VR headset and they've got to defuse a bomb, and everybody else in the room's
talking and nobody explodes.
Yeah, I think that would be quite a
brilliant game. That's good on the Switch, by the way.
Yeah, I bet you that's a good one.
You get a bomb manual, so you have to print that off. But because the person's holding the Switch, you can't cheat and see what's on the bomb like you would if it was on a TV screen.
There's also Bill Gates' favourite game, Fusion Frenzy.
Oh, for fuck's sake, yeah. I've never actually played that. That
Fusion Frenzy 2 is
collection
great.
List.
Yeah. I'm leaning into the cliche because I'm Scottish and a lot of my stories involve drinking alcohol. But what we would do is we used to, when we were younger, like 18, 19, we would get Fusion Frenzy 2 on our Xbox 360 and go around to our friend's house and play the Ice Dragon Challenge, in which, hello Cola, we would play... You could get that day. It was before they started taxing alcohol, so you could get 3 litres of cider for £3. And it was called Ice. The brand was Ice Dragon, which is basically what all the homeless people used to drink. So we would go around each with 3 litres of cider, and if you came first, you had to drink 1 finger of the bottle. Second, 2 fingers. Third, 3 fingers. Fourth, 4 fingers, and we'd just play.
Jesus.
And if you came fourth, you had to sit out the next round because there was probably about 10 of us, and we'd just keep going for about 4 or 5 hours. And by the end of it, it was like one of these drinks where you often got drunk from the feet up, or it felt like that. So I've got a vague memory of a friend, Tony, with his wee porn. Tony, he drank, and he's a small man. He drank all three. Yeah, he drank all 3 litres of his cider, and he tried to stand up and then just fell over like a turtle and couldn't stand up again, and that was his night over. So yeah, that Fusion Frenzy 2 is a good one. That we certainly had a party that night.
I definitely I remember a drinking game to Mario Party 2. That
Oh,
made me
I think
throw
that
up.
would be a fun one. Yeah.
I think I've still got a drunken video from that at some point that I'll have to send to you. That was fun, but yeah, I can't drink Southern Comfort anymore after that.
Oh, everybody's got a drink like that, don't they? They have a
Yeah.
bad experience on it, and then that's it. Game over.
Yeah.
Tequila's my one. Can't do.
I used to really like Southern Comfort with lemonade. Maybe I'll try it again one day. What even is Southern Comfort?
I don't know. Is it a rum? I don't know. Someone tweet us and tell us what Southern Comfort is, because
Yeah.
we don't have Google
Yeah.
at our fingers. I guess the only housekeeping I've got is, I guess, as ever, subscribe to my Substack. So you go to davidsmiley.substack.com, in which I will send you a weekly news roundup into your inbox. I have now linked the Winners You podcast to that as well. So every time you get a new Winners You podcast goes up, you should get an email as well telling us someone's gone live, so you can keep an eye out for that too. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Do you want to know what Southern Comfort is?
Yeah, what is it?
Apparently, is a bourbon whiskey flavored liqueur.
No way! Oh, it's a liqueur. Okay.
Originating from the Reconstruction era of the South, but it no longer includes actual bourbon whiskey. Instead, or is it bourbon? Bourbon whiskey. Instead, it's created with a combination of a neutral spirit and various flavors and ingredients such as fruit juices and spices.
There you go.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a scenario in which I'm ever going to find myself with access to some Southern Comfort ever again in my life. Maybe that's quite sad to think. Well, it's actually great, but
I'm going to say one of the least manly things I'm ever going to say, but I've really missed out this summer by not having more of the salted caramel flavored Kahlua with cream soda, which is a fucking king's drink.
That sounds like a teeth-rotting nightmare. You're gonna have to introduce me to that next time I see you. Maybe it'll be available in York, and we can have a winter version.
Yeah. Do you ever have a Skittle Bomb?
I
don't even know what a Skittle Bomb is, but I had one in Aberdeen, and I assumed people knew what it was. But I don't know what it was.
Yes, but not a proper one. So Skittles is just a bottle. You take a packet of Skittles and a bottle of vodka, and you put the Skittles in the vodka and leave it for like a month, and then the Skittles will just the sugar and the sweetness will just sort of mix up, and you sort of turn it and shake it, and then it's just like a sweet vodka.
I think I had it in that. What was that place that did like the really stupid flavored shots of vodka?
I know exactly what you mean. And I cannot think where that.
It's across the road from that church place.
Yeah, it's on Belmont Street, but it's not there anymore. It's shut down.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I remember they had like peanut butter flavored like whiskey, vodka shots,
curry
and
flavored
iron
shots.
brew.
Yeah, disgusting.
Yeah. And on that.
On that bombshell, I've been David, he has been Alex, and we have been a Winners You, and I'm out.
Keep gaming.
Ding.